Welcome, Ega's Army of the Night, to the Discord random experimental broadcast.
I don't like where this is heading.
I'm your host, Zombie Mike, and with me we have two guests here in Discord. We have Paco and we have Burpo.
Hello.
Hey, Mike.
Thank you for joining me on this experimental adventure here.
Glad to be here.
What we're hoping is that in the future, people can connect and maybe ask questions and chit-chat about different topics, and actually record it and send it out there to the rest of the community.
I think that we should just get straight into the meat of the topic here.
Well, before we get into any Bloodstain stuff, you said that you're actually a programmer and you've been working on your own game engine?
Well, yeah, it's kind of a labor of love, just a side project.
Hey, that's how all good indies start, right?
I don't know, I haven't felt too much of a commitment to it recently. It's just exploring new technologies and discovering new things every day.
Cool. So what is this project?
Well, I've been fascinated by video games for so long, but I never considered myself to be in the kind of capacity where I could actually make one. And then I figured out it wasn't as hard as I was making it out to be.
So it's a game project?
Yes, it is indeed a game project. It's a fighting game in the same vein as like a Soul Calibur.
Oh yeah, I like Soul Calibur. Did you see that someone recreated Miriam in Soul Calibur?
No, I don't think I saw that. But they follow the same kind of design in it. I could see it being relatively easy for someone who understands how that works to implement a new character.
Yeah, apparently there's a good customization ability in that. You can just kind of build your own little 3D characters to fight with.
Oh yeah, the character creation screen of Soul Calibur games have been improving drastically ever since their introduction.
We do have some fighting game fans in the community. Purified Word Sold, he's actually done some tournaments. Won some tournaments, I think.
I tell you right now, the game that I'm planning on probably wouldn't be too well as a tournament game, because for a tournament game, balance is very important, and I feel that balance is good in a fighting game, but to try to achieve the kind of balance you would need in a tournament fighting game, you would sacrifice a lot of the unique characteristics of the individual characters.
Mm. Yeah, that's the trick, right? It's trying to make someone powerful and awesome to use and stuff, but then, you got to balance it all.
It's make the character useful without making them overpowered. It's a delicate balancing game.
One could imagine. So, okay, I guess we got that out the way if you wanted to talk about some Bloodstain stuff.
Yeah, personal projects are just, kind of on the back burner. Lack of graphic talent.
How long have you been working on it?
Only about a year. Unfortunately, I've met with several roadblocks that have required me to scrap large chunks of the code base.
Mm.
If
You're on
we're
YouTube
talking,
as well.
If we're talking on the topic of Bloodstain, sorry to interrupt you. It's I guess I may seem disingenuous with my involvement in the community, but when I backed the game, I really wasn't backing the game itself. And this might seem a little bit weird, but as a fellow game designer and programmer, the thing that really sold me on the game was Iga himself.
Yeah, so you're supporting the designer, not necessarily the actual game.
Entirely. I didn't care too much, what it was called. I was worried and yet hopeful at the same time. I want that nostalgic experience that a lot of people, I believe, are looking for in the spiritual successor to a game like Symphony of the Night. However, my support hindered completely on Iga's appeal, I should say.
So you just wanted him to succeed because his legacy deserved good cheers?
I wouldn't say his legacy, generally. I get that he's, a long-standing member of, the community, and he's worked on many projects over his tenure as a programmer and as a game designer in general. But really, it's his attitude that sold it for me. Because, I watch people parading around in suits, claiming to be game developers, and I feel that they lack that old soul.
Mm.
I feel it's become more commercial and more corporate than it is about, the passion. And that was, if I had to call it one word, it was the passion that sold me.
He wanted to do it for the right reasons.
I feel that as a game developer and as someone who's kind of idolized a lot of the older game designers, that there's a certain way that they carry themselves that just isn't present anymore. And you can see this when older game designers talk about their past projects. They do it with such fire and, they just let it flow and there's no restraint and just their eyes light up. Like the people who were working on Ukulele, the former employees of Rare, when they talk about Banjo-Kazooie, and all the work that went into that, they just light up, they glow. It's like it's this feeling that you can't buy, and I feel that that's what a lot of game companies are kind of missing these days.
So Konami has lost its soul.
I feel that a lot of the industry has lost that spark. They're doing it purely for the profit, because we get it. It's a game. You develop it to make money. It has to move units. But I feel that those people who designed those games back in the day, they had those same feelings, but they didn't let their passion be overrun by them.
Okay.
And actually, Symphony of the Night was a perfect example of this, because it was pitched as a spin-off project and given full creative control to the developers. So this kind of like unhinged that corporate bonding that keeps them tied to this like soulless work ethic. And even in the interviews with Ego, when he speaks of this project and he talks about the people who worked on it, he said that that freedom that they were given was one of the liberating factors of why the game was so great, to paraphrase.
True. Do you feel that maybe Iga at this point is stifled by the commitments he's made up front in the project, and now, instead of getting a natural progression of it morphing into something that no one could have expected, he's constrained to giving us what we backed?
That is one of the major problems with Kickstarter projects. I feel that they lock developers into a box where developers feel pressured to meet a certain criteria, while that criteria might not actually meet eye to eye with the developer's original vision.
Well, I think he did have a clear vision of what he wanted to start with. I just don't know if Bloodstained would have evolved into something a lot different if the public didn't already have expectations about what they put their money into. So instead of getting something that could have been different than what we all thought, we all expect what was kind of sold to us on Kickstarter.
And there is that with this particular project, because a lot of people are expecting, that retro throwback kind of like feel where, it has that like Symphony of the Night flavor. But I feel that just because it has the flavor, it doesn't need to copy the formula.
Well, the formula is kind of the whole genre, though.
Well, not in what I guess, how do I explain this? What people are expecting out of it, with like all the stretch goals that we reached and everything.
Yeah.
Because I like that the creator is like throwing it out there. Okay, this game is going to be by the fans for the fans, but I feel that by backing himself into that corner, he does lose a small amount of his individual like creative freedom with it. He still has a lot of it though. I just feel that it's one of those give and take situations.
Well, I think the stuff that was established up front isn't overly restrictive. I think that maybe some of the Johannes stuff and like maybe expecting him to be a playable character, we don't know what we're going to get yet. None of that stuff's been officially announced. We don't know if he's a second playable character. But it's just the fact that he exists, and the story that was laid out about how she went into a coma for 10 years and all that kind of stuff. I'm sure he feels really obligated to stick to that. But at the same time, I saw early interviews with him where he was talking about stuff like the Lockheed volcano, and that's now emerging. So it's like he had that vision way back in the beginning, and it looks like he has no real problem sticking with his vision. Maybe he's had this game in his mind for a lot longer than the Kickstarter's been around.
Yes, there is that possibility. I mean, just what it is I kind of want the game industry to kind of like, I want this game to succeed, and I want the game industry to step back and look at this success as like, wow, we can keep our passion, we can be upfront. I mean, Iga's just being himself whenever he does an interview or any kind of like promotion for the Bloodstained project anyways. Mm-hmm. So I kind of want to remind the game industry of its roots.
Yeah, I like that.
It was, they were just gamers who had a passion, who thought they could take it to the next level.
So one thing that I saw was interesting today is Exalt9 on the forums. He's never played an Igavania before, but he's on the boards and he's eager to play Bloodstained. You said you wanted to see this game excel in the industry, and it's kind of already made its money, I guess. I mean, it paid for itself because it was a Kickstarter project that was successful. But to see it really succeed, it's got to get new fans. It's got to grow outside of the niche that supported it.
If we go by that logic, Mighty Number 9 succeeded. Like, it made its money. But like you see, that's that kind of like ideology that the game industry like thrives on, that I'm saying is what Iga's whole like, personality is just counter to. Because it was that whole, we got the money, now we just need to make the product. But
that's not success, though. That's just breaking even.
Yeah, and I feel that, like, with a project that, that makes the money, it's like, sure, Bloodstained makes that splash, but it's the final product that actually defines the success or the failure. I mean, it could have made, $50 million, but if the final product ends up being a flop, then the trust and the belief in that kind of, like, spry spirit and, just that, like, bright motivation, I feel that it would just suffer.
So, Burpo, you're being quiet. Why did you back Bloodstained?
Yeah, mostly to support the genre of the game, to show a bit like Iga's Kickstarter pitch that it's not the marketers who decide what kind of game the gamers want. It's more like the people who put the money in it.
So very similar reasons, I see. Am I the only one that's actually like eager to play it?
Yeah, sure, I look forward to playing it, but if you don't like pitch them some money and so they can try it, you won't never pay it.
That's true.
I always thought that I was a bit of a rare instance in this situation where, like, a lot of people come off of like playing tons of Castlevania games and having tons of experience. But I felt that just by backing the game specifically on the merits and kind of like just the feeling you get from the people involved in the making of the game, that was like just something that a lot of people probably wouldn't be able to relate to.
Well, I'm sure Iga was feeling the love that people were supporting him, and not just Bloodstained as a game, but just him as a creator and the effort to do that. So you might not be so alone in that as you thought.
It's just you got to send a message to the industry that the importance of letting creative minds, be they young or old, have a certain level of freedom can get you some of the most amazing products that the industry has ever seen.
So do you think that Kickstarter is the route to that, or do you think that it actually has to be an industry change and that it's going to show publishers that they can put money into people like Iga?
Unfortunately, I believe that Kickstarter is the wrong route.
Why is that?
It's purely on the fact that, like, people are pretty much pre-ordering a game.
Mm-hmm.
And pre-order culture has a lot of stigma and, like, I guess I could say caveats attached to it that make it a less than desirable route for achieving your dreams. I would really like to see publishers begin to trust in the people that they hire to make products that will sell.
So the funding still needs to come mostly from publishers.
Purely on the fact that by taking funding from users and doing all the stretch goals, sure, you can make a game with content that the users requested and whatnot, but I feel that it's a realm of mystique that was something that should have been left behind the scenes, because it was meant, when you get a new game, you're supposed to be surprised, something new and fresh. If you backed it and you saw all the stretch goals and everything that was going to be in it, I feel that there's some sense of like, yes, it is a new game and it is great, but I feel that I saw all this coming beforehand.
So in an alternate universe, let's pretend that Konami is going to release a new Castlevania game and they throw a Kickstarter for it and say, hey, you're going to get a game, whether this Kickstarter goes or not. But if you hit these stretch goals, then we'll be able to make this game bigger and bigger. Would you donate to that?
No, unfortunately, because what it is I feel that it's reaching into a realm of where you're mixing consumer and product. And when you mix consumer and product, I feel, at least personally, that it would somewhat dull the experience.
That is a long time to wait when you do a Kickstarter like that, because most Kickstarters exceed a year. But I remember when I bought Portrait of Ruin, that was I got a great little pre-order package that came with that, and I think that stuff like that could work as a Kickstarter goal, even for a major company. Like, okay, if you basically pre-order this through Kickstarter, then you'll get this tier of extra stuff that comes along with it. And maybe it's not game content, but maybe it's something physical, like guidebooks or soundtracks or posters, whatever.
And I feel that is exactly what the essence of pre-order culture was supposed to be based on. However, I just had this weird thing. It's like it's supposed to be some mysterious event. Like, you got to put a little bit of the the majesty and the surprise back into the industry. Like, it just becomes so formulaic. You need to have people who, they're creative minds. They're working together with other creatives, and they have a company backing them. So that the product will be made and that it will be by the deadline. However, the only time I ever feel that games don't live up to their full potential is when they have somebody on one side of that fence saying no so hard to one idea that they kind of miss the point of the entire experience. But, that's just my narrow-minded experience from what I've picked up from industry professionals and the way they carry themselves and also interact with their superiors and things.
Did you watch the Nintendo Switch live streams when they revealed everything? They had they had this one part where Reggie was sitting on the couch with these guys, and he goes to open up the box for the new Zelda game, and he revealed like some of the items in there that you could get if you pay extra. And I think one of those things was like a map, And if you remember the old Zeldas, they had that inside the box. You don't have to pay anything extra; it just came as part of the game. It was part of that mystery you were talking about. But now, if you want that kind of thing, it's like you've got to pay extra for it.
I feel that's locking features that enhance the experience behind a paywall. Like, you must spend this much more to get this elevated experience. I feel that if you're going to create an experience, that experience should be distributed equally. If it's something that's going to impact, like for instance, like you said, the map, if it's something that would be like, really inherent to the gameplay, I feel like that is something that should never touch a pre-order exclusive.
For some maps, I would agree. Like, if you were to get the Bloodstained map, that's a higher tier type thing, but it's not required to actually enjoy the game. It's just an extra. It's a bonus. It's not meant to like be there as you play it. Like, I remember, I think it was Oblivion came with a map. Maybe Morrowind.
Yes.
Yeah, Morrowind did too.
Morrowind came with a map. Oblivion came with a map. Even Skyrim came with a map.
Oh, it did? I don't remember my Skyrim map. It's got to be around here somewhere. But, I thought that those were great little things to come and enhance the experience. It wasn't even necessary, really, but it definitely was intriguing to draw you into the world.
There's different levels of like descriptiveness when you speak of a map. Like if it was a Bloodstained map, because the Bloodstained map is so simple, having a map of like anything in this game would kind of be like a cheat book, something that you would just pick up, at the store later on down the road. Whereas like games with Skyrim and like, Oblivion, if you had a map that was like, less detailed than the world, you would be like, oh wow, look how big this is. I wonder what's over in this area.
Yeah, a map can be designed to where it draws your curiosity to places and not necessarily gives you all the secrets.
And I feel that was the effect that they were trying to achieve. But enough about, the industry. Like, let's get into, like the mechanics of the game and how we kind of like expect it to play out. Because I feel that that's a hotly debated topic.
Oh, really? Is there something controversial I'm unaware of?
Oh, no, not exactly controversial. It's just, for me specifically, you have an idea because, it's like, oh yeah, it's supposed to be an Igavania game, right? So you have that picture. But now where it goes from there is like, the sky's the limit.
So mechanically, we do have the genre to keep in mind and give service to, but you're talking about innovation on top of that, to where the sky's the limit and maybe thinking outside the box.
Just to have a bit of curiosity as to maybe where they decide to take, certain aspects of the game that weren't fully explored in previous iterations of the genre.
That was one of the questions that I last asked in the BCB to the Chasm game. I asked him, does he feel like the genre has, room for innovation and a place to, like really expand? And he said yes. He didn't give any great examples of really what to do with it, but his game is about random generation between the key rooms as you go through the game. So if you on your subsequent playthroughs, you're going to get a different experience every time. The map's not going to be the same. So that's kind of his innovation that he's brought to the genre. But we've had games like Guacamelee that has you shifting in between different realities and doing that like real quick to add a lot of puzzle elements to it. I thought that was a great innovation. Do you have any innovations that you've noticed or that you would like to see in the genre?
Well, not entirely, because I don't want to get my expectations, mixed in with the reality. So I don't want to, I don't kind of want to shoot the game down before it comes out, but I also don't want to hype it up so much that I'm easily disappointed.
It's okay to dream.
Yeah, I mean, all I'm really expecting out of this game is a classic Igavania experience with, maybe a few added elements of like, mystique with new bosses and maybe some different mechanics on how to deal with those bosses that haven't been explored in, previous games.
Sure. Well, it looks like Cecil Kane has showed up. I don't know if he has a microphone or not, but he's definitely listening to us. And Burpo, I know you're still there, just being quiet. How about you guys discuss a little bit about mechanics while I grab another beer?
Testing.
Yeah, we hear you. Well,
Who am I speaking with?
This is Paco.
Hi, this is Cecil Kane.
And Zombie Mike's back. And Burpo, you're still there, right?
somewhat.
All right, well, now that he's back, I've got to step out for a minute.
Oh, okay. Well, hello,
So,
Cecil.
what did I miss?
We were just BSing about why you backed Bloodstained, and it seems like there's two major reasons. That's one, because you want to play it, but the larger reason seems to be to support IGA and to show the industry that we still want games like this, and we still support developers that have ideas like he does.
Yeah, definitely. And the timing was a really big deal, too. He had that Kickstarter going at the perfect time.
Yeah, there's a lot of hate going towards his former employer at that specific time. Operation Akamajo's they know all about that.
Yeah, it was, it would have been neat if he had done it a year before, but he would not have done nearly as well without all the politics of Konami at that time. I mean, as well as he would have done without it, he did even better because of what was going on at that time.
As far as Operation Akamajo goes, you guys had obvious reasons to back IGA. You were just waiting for the moment to do so.
Well, like we discussed before, we knew something was coming. We didn't know exactly what. Remember that tax flare that Tim decoded?
Mm-hmm.
It had a clear message on it. It was put there deliberately. And the whole thing was, what does the KS mean? And because, again, there was no numeral for K, so somebody clearly wanted that K to be there. And it was abbreviated KS. Obviously, in hindsight, we know it meant Kickstarter. We suspected it meant Kickstarter at the time, and for my part, I was in a really good financial position to put some money aside at that time, and I did because I thought that's what was going to happen. It turned out I was right, but the rest is history, as they say.
Indeed, indeed. So it looks like you have your submissions for your backer tier pretty much well sent to Mana now. Is that something that you wanted to talk about publicly, or would you like to keep that kind of stuff private?
I don't mind talking about it. I really struggled. I had some ideas that I wanted to do for weapons that never quite came together. I was really interested in time-sensitive weapons, for example. But the problem with that is if you're going to have time-sensitive weapons, like if you wanted to have a sun sword and a moon sword, they kind of have to come in pairs. And I really couldn't find a good way to maneuver around that, so I kind of put that idea on the shelf. I might revisit it.
Well, there's no day-night cycle, though.
Well, you don't necessarily need to have a visual day-night cycle. I mean, if you look at past Nightmare games, you had time-sensitive equipment in both Order of Ecclesia as well as Harmony of Despair. It just went off the system's internal clock. You just don't have the visual cue like you might have had with Simon's Quest, for example. You have the visual cue of day and night. And then even in Symphony of the Night, there was time-sensitive equipment, but it wasn't based on an internal clock. It was actually based on the playtime, the big clock in the middle of the marble gallery. Aside from that, I really like the idea of time-sensitive equipment like that, like the Moonstone, Sunstone, that sort of thing.
Yeah, I do too.
I actually did put in a pretty well put-together last-minute idea. You already know about the Bloodlust Whip and the Power Purse that I've talked about before, but I also put in the idea for a bandit. And the idea for that is I really like treasure hunting. I get kind of annoyed that there's never really any good piece of weaponry that boosts your luck, ever. The closest thing you had, I think, was the Alucard sword in Symphony of the Night. It could boost your luck as part of the Alucard set, but as a standalone weapon, that's really focused on building up your luck attribute. There really hasn't been anything. And it's
no lucky swords.
Exactly.
No lucky whips.
Now, I was going back and forth over whether or not I wanted to suggest a knife, but you think about it, treasure hunting, you fight some pretty tough enemies. You don't really want to be at that close range that you would have with a knife, so I opted for a short sword. But I suggested, you know how you have the magic strike attack for certain weapons? You can cast a magic spell with them, like the Shadow Warp from Alucard's.
Yeah, like a button input to do a special attack, yeah.
Exactly. I put in a suggestion that for the Bandit Blade, it would have a magic strike attack that you can steal from the enemy. It would be like a really quick dash maneuver, similar to Ricker's Tackle, where you just dash through the enemy really quick. And there'd be like an opportunity to steal rather than grind constantly. And maybe if you're fighting a really tough enemy, you could attempt to use that technique over and over to try to steal rather than kill him, leave the room, come back, kill him, leave the room, come back, trying to get that item to drop. So I was just putting that in as a suggestion for that particular weapon. But yeah, I'm giving back a big headache because I don't like to marry myself to one idea. I like to throw up a bunch of ideas in the air, kind of see what sticks, see what's going to work for the game.
Huh. So as a Final Fantasy fan, of course, with 6, you had Locke that could steal stuff from their enemies. It sounds like a weapon that's kind of like that.
I was actually, funny you mentioned that, I was actually thinking of the Mug ability that Locke can get a little bit later in the game. I forget, I think it's a relic that unlocks that ability. It changes Steel to Mug because you're doing damage in addition to making the Steel attempt.
Right.
Because I was thinking about how am I going to word this so they don't think it's just an attempt to steal without doing an attack. So I explained something like, it's a dash move, but it's a mighty slash as you're dashing past the enemy. I probably should have brought up Victor's Tackle. I didn't when I sent out that last email, but that's probably the closest thing I can think of to it. But it sounds like, based on some information I got back from Mana, it sounds like they might be more interested in the Power Purse idea. They actually asked me if I had any kind of image, and I said no.
Wait, they were interested in the Power Purse?
It sounds like they're interested in the Power Purse.
Well, I know what the Power Purse is, but for everyone else listening, refresh their memories, because I don't know if they've listened to the episode where you came onto the BCB with me to talk about that.
Well, the main idea is it functions kind of like the miser ring, in that the more gold you collect, the more the attack bar goes up. But instead of assigning that to an accessory, it's actually assigned to a weapon. And the idea is the more gold you collect, the purse gets bigger and bigger and bigger. And it gets heavier, and it gets a little more unwieldy and does terrible damage when you get hit with it, or when the enemy gets hit with it.
So the more gold she stuffs in her purse, the more damage it does. Does it get bigger? That would be cool, too. You know, very Egavania if it actually got larger visually, too.
Yeah, and in a way, it kind of. I remember when I first played the first Legend of Zelda on the NES, I was thinking to myself, where does Link put all this stuff? So it's kind of in that idea that Miriam has a place to put her gold. I don't think it would be a scenario where we actually make a relic out of it or anything like that, but I just wanted to have that idea out there that she puts her gold in her purse, and the purse gets bigger and bigger the more gold she collects. So if you collect 1 billion pieces of gold, you're going to have this huge purse that she's swinging around. And it's just
that would be hilarious. I think it would fit right in. So I love that idea. Now, did I hear a microwave and some sizzling bacon earlier?
You know, funny you mention that. Yes, there is some bacon cooking over here. I was a little concerned because I thought it might have been burning, but looks just great.
Well, I have the beer, but I'd like the bacon. Well, it sounds delicious.
I got my daughter trained to be cooking some bacon now, and she's good at it.
God bless her.
Yeah, I got here turkey ranch and bacon sub. Kind of holding off a little bit so that you don't chat.
Yummy.
Now, there's also the Bloodlust wit. Bloodlust is sort of I was thinking what would be the most Castlevania sort of themed weapon that I can think of without actually doing something that's been done before. So I thought of a marriage between the Muramasa, the tonic from Symphony of the Night, and the vampire killer. Main idea being that it's a vampiric weapon. It's a whip that's a vampiric. It's got vampiric attributes in that. Just like the Muramasa, the wielder enters a vampiric state where if you can absorb hit points from blood, just like Alucard does with his Dark Metamorphosis in Symphony of the Night. But I was hoping there would be a daylight cycle because I love the idea of, number one, having the whip more powerful at night and weaker during the day, but as an added effect, if Miriam were to step in sunlight while wielding the whip, she would burn, she would take damage. And I really love that idea, but since there's no visual day-night cycle, that's not going to work. Maybe you could still have a scenario where it's stronger at night and weaker during the day, but I don't know. We'll see where that conversation goes. Actually, technically haven't gotten official feedback. The only thing I got from Mana is that design team was interested in what the power purse would look like. Oh, one more thing about the power purse.
So, hold on, though. Suddenly you're a purse designer. I just realized how silly that sounds. You've got to visually come up with something that matches this idea.
Well, the thing about it is I thought it would need to be something fashionable because I did a little bit of homework on this. The modern purse, the woman's handbag, originated in England during the Industrial Revolution.
So it's age appropriate. That's nice.
Yes, it is. But I was thinking maybe a little bit of Joseph's cloak. This is an idea that I had after I sent off my last proposal. But I want it to be fashionable. I want it to match Miriam. So when Mana was asking me, well, do you have a picture? What is this purse going to look like? And I was essentially explained, well, it should match Miriam, the style of Miriam's clothing. So I referred her, maybe have the artist that actually designed Miriam take a crack at it and see what he can do to sort of match the visual. And the idea is that you have different forms of Miriam. This has been briefly touched upon. Like Miriam's going to have a pure form, for example.
Right,
so,
yeah, she's got all sorts of different looks that we're going to see.
Right, and the idea is that whatever form Miriam has, the purse is going to match that look in terms of color, at least.
Oh, so they'll have to do a new skin for every single outfit? That's going to be crazy, but that would be cool to see all the different types of purses.
It could be a tall order because...
It sounds like a tall order, but it sounds like it might pay off.
And it sounds like the sort of... And I'm thinking about it ahead of time. I thought, this is the sort of thing they're going to want to do because it's different. It's something that they haven't seen before. And because you have a female protagonist, it's also an opportunity. It's not like you can easily come back to it later if they switch the male protagonist down the road.
Oh, yeah. How would this apply to any of the other main playable characters? That's going to be weird to beat people with a purse if you're, like, Zangetsu or whoever's going to be playable, which we don't quite know yet.
Well, that's just the thing. In most cases, the alternate playable characters don't seem to have alternate weapons. Like if you look at Richter mode, if you look at Maxim mode, Maria was an alternate character in Round of Blood.
That's true.
So they tend to stick to their favorite weapon, whereas the main game normally see a wide variety of weapons that they can equip. You never know what Igarashi is going to do, though. I'd actually like to see some variety in terms of the weapons that the ultimate character wields. Kind of wish Miriam had kept her dual wielding, but they got a lot of stuff going on. Maybe save it for one of the ultimate characters. Maybe Zangetsu can dual wield. That would be cool.
Well, they did feature him as a dual-wielding character at the Microsoft
right.
GDC, but we were also told that dual-wielding didn't make it in, so that may have changed.
At least for the main game. I remember dual-wielding didn't make it in for Miriam, but maybe the ultimate character was something.
Yeah.
I'm actually
that would
still
make
really
it pretty
curious about this. How was that ultimate boss revenge? I'm wondering how that's going to be implemented. If it would be like an alternate character mode, if it would be like something completely separate, with specially designed stages for the boss that you're playing as. Where was I?
Boss revenge mode. We know that there will be a boss revenge mode, but we don't really know anything about it.
At some point, I think, just based on the last interview I had with Igarashi, I think he's playing it pretty close to the chest. I don't think he wants to spoil
Yeah,
anything
or
more than
constrict
that.
himself to it. Yeah, because then it kind of ties people's expectations, and that's something else we were talking about earlier. Like, the more he tells us, the more we'll expect. So if he's got to change something, just like the dual wielding. Like, he had the Destructoid art that had the dual wielding on it, and we heard Zangetsu had dual wielding, but then later he has to disappoint us by saying that there will be no dual wielding. So the less we know about boss revenge mode, probably the better, so that way we can't be disappointed.
And another thing, too, I mean, you start out with a project. I mean, I'm an artist of sorts. I know what it's like to work in visual arts. Sometimes you start out with an idea, and you're really excited about it, but it just doesn't work for one reason or another. You get going in a different direction that's more exciting, and then you just have to take it out. And I'm kind of wondering if maybe dual wielding was like, come to think of it, I remember it being talked about very early on that you'd be forging weapons, but there really hasn't been any talk about that since the original Kickstarter. And I'm wondering if maybe that's something that's still there, if that had to be cut, or if it got changed somehow.
Okay.
I wish I could be a fly on the wall. I wish I knew what the creative process was in terms of how things evolved between point A and point B. But I wouldn't be surprised if there's some little things like that, like the dual wielding that had to be cut for game balance reasons, or maybe you could express a similar idea in a better way, that sort of thing. Anyway, I'm going to run here for a little. I'll be back, but I'm going to chow on my dinner here. It's looking too good to
Okay.
pass up.
Well, thanks for jumping in, Cecil. It was good talking to you again.
Yeah, my pleasure. Chat with you in a bit.
Yeah, see you later, man.
Bye.
Test.
Test is working. I hear you just
All
fine.
right, I'm functional.
Yeah, we can hear you just fine. The volume's
that's
good and
good.
everything.
That's good. Pretty much the only thing I have to talk about is what I'm trying to get done with Cincinnati's A&G Con to try and have something going on for Bloodstained the beginning of next month.
Yeah, it's right around the corner.
Yeah, the problem at this point was when I spoke with the representative that I spoke with last year, first of all, they were at a completely different site. And at the time, we were under the impression that there might actually be something more to show by March of 2017. And from what I understand, from what I've heard from people behind the scenes, and I actually talked to Mana, and she put me in touch with somebody at 505.
Really?
And yes, so I did get a chance to speak by email with the contact at 505. And they basically said, small cons are not a some of our best support comes from a convention like. So he was actually all for it. However, he did point out that basically Koji Igarashi and the whole team are basically hitting a huge number of milestones right now. They're motoring through the development, and so 505 really doesn't want to disrupt that. So no chance of anyone coming out. Not that I figured there really was a chance. They did basically say, yeah. I mean, I was like, anybody from Art Play, anybody from 505, if anybody wants to come out, I will talk to the guys in charge and ask what hoops do I have to jump through and how big is your budget? Because, I mean, last year, for example, they had a couple of VAs. Like, I believe they had Vic Mignogna and Paul St. Peter, I believe. So,
yeah, Vic Mignogna's great.
Yeah, they've got some guest budget. But probably not necessarily enough to get somebody from Japan. But I figured, if there's a chance, ask, see what's up. But so that didn't work out. And then, of course, like I said, there isn't a new build. And the guy at 505 basically said, the last thing we want to do is put out a development build that isn't ready for public consumption. So from the way he was talking in the email and the rumors that have been flying around, again, I am not involved with anybody in management. I want to make that perfectly clear if anybody's listening to this. But it does kind of sound like there might be something coming out in March or maybe April for the backers to look at, but there's absolutely no confirmation there. There's nothing available right now. The team's working hard, but there's nothing new. So basically, I'm limited to the E3 demo.
Right, and that doesn't surprise me at all, but I do love that speculation about, maybe March or a little after, seeing something new.
I mean, to be fair, the email from the guy at 505 did not say anything like that. It's just reading between the lines and the rumors that have been flying around. I'm like, maybe there's something coming in March, maybe April, but nothing's going to be ready by the beginning of the month. That's just not going to happen. So
I reached out to them to come on to the Bloodstained Community broadcast whenever that partnership was officially announced. If I did, what questions would you like me to ask 505 Games?
Honestly, for me personally, I just want to know what exactly is their overall involvement. What are they personally doing to support the development and the process of Bloodstained? The interaction between 505, Art Play, the actual development team with Koji and everyone else, or pardon me, Iga. always refer to him as Iga.
Hey, either way,
or he'll use the whip on you. Pretty much everybody's always seemed. It's almost always described as Iga in all capital letters.
Right.
Or Igarashi-san. So,
well, at the end of Rondo in the credits, it gave a special thanks to Iga, and that's where I first, exactly. I think that's where it started from.
Yeah. I mean, to be fair, the development names for Castlevania in general have always been kind of a pit traditionally. I mean, I get the joke. I mean, anybody who's seen the Angry Video Game Nerd episode on the original Castlevania knows the whole joke of the original credits. I get it. I think it's slightly funny, but it has become a problem. The original composer, for example, for Bloodstained, for a very long time...
For Bloodstained, or you mean for
pardon me, for the original Castlevania, pardon me. For a very long time, she couldn't get on Wikipedia because people were basically rejecting it, saying, "We don't know who this person
well, that's
is.
Wikipedia.
The only documentation is James Banana." I know. Well, it's not. It doesn't just affect Wikipedia, from what I've understood. The original reason that game developers and artists and all that originally had to use pseudonyms was basically because the companies were afraid the other companies would poach the product.
Yeah, absolutely.
So they basically know who exactly made these, and they'd be like, "We will pay you $5 or 5 yen more than they were paying you."
Yeah, and that's terrible that you don't get credits just for that. That's just
well. The hilarious thing is how awful it's gotten over time. I mean, it's better now in that people get the proper credit, and the companies recognize if you don't support your artists on at least some level, they're gonna, riot on you.
True.
But the hilarious thing is how screwed up it gets and how quickly that happens. Arguably, the entire reason Electronic Arts was originally formed was the artistic types were sick and tired of not getting any credit. And of course, the so-called original video game credit, the Easter egg in the Atari 2600 Adventure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He had to sneak that in.
I know he had to sneak it in because they wouldn't let him say, "I did this."
Right.
And arguably, it was because of those processes and those protocols that EA was originally founded by, gaming developers and artists and creators who were like, you know what, we're sick and tired of not getting any credit for pouring ourselves into this stuff. We're going to make our own company. We're going to put out our own stuff, and we're going to make sure everybody gets credit. And then we have the modern EA, which just makes you go,
yeah,
"Oh God, what's happened?" Exactly. It's a whole different beast now.
So, Burpo, if you had any questions you could ask 505, what would they be?
Other than, is there Bloodstained Pachinko plan? To which my response is, if there is, I will hit it with the lever.
Yeah. So you rip it off and hit it, or would you hit the lever and put money into it?
Purify Weird Soul can attest to this because he was at MadFest too. One of the first things they announced was they had pachinko machines for the very first time. I was at opening ceremonies and I asked them the question, by any chance, does anybody have a lever that I can use to hit the machines with? They were like, no, because we need these to be intact. I was like, hey, if one of them is actually made by Konami, I guarantee nothing. But as far as I know, none of them were Konami machines. But yeah, I was sorely tempted to just hit the lever on the machine.
I went to a convention not too long ago, and that's the first place I saw a pachinko machine, an actual one that I could sit down at and play. So apparently they're becoming more popular. Maybe Konami's just ahead of the curve, man. We're just the dinosaurs that can't evolve with them.
Well, to be fair, I mean, arguably the whole reason Konami's gone the way it has, at least as far as the pachinko machines, is the guy in charge, the top guy at Konami, has invested heavily in trying to, shall we say, loosen the gambling laws in Japan. And pachinko is basically the one form of gambling that is effectively permissible in Japan right now.
You just got to jump through a little hoop about trading in your prizes and all that.
Exactly. And so he's putting everything in that, but apparently also looking to loosen the restrictions overall. So basically, not only is Konami moving to mobile, he's trying to turn it into a gambling company. He's trying to get into the ground floor, which basically means everything else gets thrown to the side, like Igarashi and Kojima and so much other stuff. I mean, when I saw Bomberman showing up on the Switch preview, I was like, "Holy cow, Konami!"
Yeah, but is it just them giving a license to some team to do it, or is Konami actually developing this?
It's actually the original Hudson Soft people that were absorbed by Konami that are actually at least partially working on this. Huh. I don't know. I'm not clear on all the details, but if that actually is some of the original people, not necessarily from the absolute original Bomberman, but at least people who've been involved with the company and with the series for some time, that's mildly encouraging.
Well, I wouldn't get my hopes up too far.
I don't want to, and I don't intend to. I mean, I'm in a lot of, shall we say, very small fandoms that are very used to getting their hopes up and then having them be dashed. So I've learned not to get my hopes up until I actually see something, and even then, it's very, very slightly. I want some actual playable stuff before I start saying, "Yay!"
Yeah, I think it would take a lot for Konami to turn their reputation around at this point.
Given their hashtag and what Jim fucking Sterling's son thinks of them, yeah.
True, very true.
I think I just made you have to bleep something if you put this on the podcast.
I don't think there's any ratings on my show.
Oh, okay, cool. No, all right. Well, in that case, I'll just drop all 7 of the bad words. Rest in peace, oh great comedian soul. If anyone gets that reference, congratulations, you're officially old.
I'm officially old, but you're gonna have to give me another tip on where that reference is coming from.
You don't know the 7 bad words?
Oh, George Carlin? Okay,
there you go.
I'm with you now.
Yeah. Like I said, if you know who that is, you're officially old.
JoJo says he's 22. That's not old, dude. I've got.
Okay, yeah, you're good, JoJo.
And
Vengeance 21. You're officially you're both kids. Yeah. I'm in my 30s. That's all I'll give you.
I'm almost out of my 30s, but Yeah, yeah. I played my first Castlevania game was Simon's Quest. I owned that on NES. I never got a chance to play the first one really.
My first was the original, and if I remember correctly, it was a random purchase at like somebody's yard sale.
Oh, that's a nice name.
Yeah, it was lucky. I don't own it anymore. I sold off all my Nintendo games a while ago. I only had about 20. I was never a collector or anything, but my original NES finally gave up the ghost about 4 years ago, I think. And I was like, and there was a new media and arcade store called Arcade Legacy that I was like, they had a media shop where they take pretty much anything that was gaming related. And I was like, you know what? I'll take these in, see what I can get. I basically got $100 for all of them. I was like, okay, cool. So I traded them in, got some new stuff, got some music CDs. He actually had a large quantity of video game soundtrack CDs.
Wow.
But once I got a good look at them, I understood why they were reasonably priced. They were pretty much all bootlegs.
Hey, I'd still take it back then.
Yeah, I mean, I was at the point that I was like, I just would really like to have something physical, but I didn't feel comfortable doing it, so I gave them back and I got some other stuff instead. And then, of course, stuff like, Distant Worlds and Video Games Live and all that started up back in, 2005, and that finally started ramping up, and finally they were actually bringing soundtracks over here to buy. I was like, yes, finally! I mean, there was the announcement, about a week ago that Square Enix finally said, you know what, we are going to publish a physical copy of the Final Fantasy 15 soundtrack worldwide. I was like, well, it's about damn time!
Yeah, well, they're actually pretty good about releasing those soundtracks, aren't they?
Well, the soundtracks...
Oh, worldwide. I guess that's the highlighted.
Pretty much since iTunes, they've been available for download everywhere. But as far as physical edition, hell no. I mean, I remember when I went to, I think it was Distant Worlds in Chicago about 2 or 3 years ago. It might have been more. But they had this plastic case with a whole bunch of various items in it. And they were saying these are all for sale. And it included the Final Fantasy VII soundtrack, the Final Fantasy 13 soundtrack, the Dissidia Duodecim soundtrack. And it was just, I could import audio CDs from Japan, but that's ridiculously expensive. So yeah, Jojo, that's why I don't do that. Mostly because I recognize if I start doing that, I'm never going to stop, and I'm probably going to be bankrupt in a matter of 3 weeks. So I know when I need to restrain myself. But yeah, the fact that they actually had those soundtracks over here a couple years ago in Chicago was awesome. But unfortunately, I didn't go to the concert until like about 30 minutes before it started. Doors opened 2 hours ahead. So basically, by the time I got there, they were all sold out.
Oh, you didn't get to go?
I know I got to go to the concert. I just didn't get to buy any of the soundtracks.
Oh, I see.
I was like, damn it!
So it's good to hear another. I guess most Castlevania fans are, but the music of a video game can be experienced outside of it for a lot longer than you can really actually play the game. You can take it wherever you want, and I'm a huge music fanatic when it comes to game music.
I am very eclectic in my musical taste, and I tend a lot to soundtracks because soundtracks usually are quite eclectic. They have a lot of different style and structure and form, and so yeah, I have soundtracks up the wazoo. And Castlevania, I don't really have any Castlevania soundtracks. I don't know if there are that many that have ever been released outside of Japan. I mean, if you look up on the video game music database, there's plenty of Castlevania soundtracks, but nothing's ever really come out over here, unfortunately. But yeah, the big three pieces of Castlevania: Vampire Killer, Bloody Tears, Beginning.
All the Castlevania stuff.
You give me a remix of those, I'm happy. I'll listen to your soundtrack. I got a whole bunch of cover artist soundtracks from going to MagFest and other conventions like that, and Castlevania is pretty much always welcome.
Oh, that's right. You went to MagFest here recently,
yes.
Right? Yeah.
I have gone to MagFest consistently since MagFest 9, their last one at their old location where they run MagFest Classic and the like now. I've basically, the entire time they've been at the Gaylord Hotel and Convention Center. Let's pause to allow your viewers to laugh at that name. Okay.
No,
oh, God, Mana just came in. Oh, God.
Yes, welcome, Mana. We have a surprise guest here in the show. Mana has arrived. No voice, as far as I know, no microphone, but we can at least converse with her as...
Thanks for the 505 contact, Mana. That was a big help. Thank you.
Can you hear us, or can you only... she says no voice right now, but chat away. Well, if we're chatting, can you hear us at least so that we don't have to type everything? All right.
All right.
She would have answered.
Yeah, I guess so. Huh?
So I suppose we should ask Burpo's question to Mana first. Mana, are there any plans for a bloodstained pachinko machine?
That's low.
You're the one who asked it. Not as far as she knows. Okay, well, that's reassuring. Hopefully, if it does happen, you'll actually have the right name for the right character's picture. No, I'm not still bitter about that. I don't know what you're talking about. Damn, fucking Konami.
I feel bitter now.
Because we don't...
I'm unaware of whatever mistake they made. What name did they put on what character?
They literally mislabeled the characters versus the image. Like, you could tell the headshot was, like Trevor or Alucard or Maria, and it was the wrong names underneath them. Like they didn't even know which character was which.
Oh, that's sad. Are you sure it's not just we have different localization character names?
No, I mean, well, if it was literally under Trevor, it said Ralph, I would have understood
Ralph?
that because yeah, seriously,
Ralph
his name,
Belmont?
his original name in Japan is Ralph Belmondo. That is actually
okay.
his original name. They changed it to Trevor because if I understand this correctly, the name Ralph is extremely foreign sounding in Japan and therefore very interesting, whereas Trevor, even though it's not nearly as foreign over here, is much more interesting than Ralph. In America, Ralph is the dude down the corner who picks up your beer, you know?
I don't have anybody around the corner that picks up my beer, but if I do, I hope his name's Ralph.
Yeah, there you go.
I have a friend named Ralph.
There you go.
He drinks, he drives really fast, and yeah, it's just dangerous.
He's
Don't
my
be in
very
that
good
car.
friend. Yeah,
You don't be in that car.
So do not give him a whip. Do not do that.
He doesn't do both at the same time, but he has been known to drive like a madman, and it's the scariest thing ever. Especially when he asks you to get in his car and it doesn't have seats.
Oh dear. Yeah, the problem is when you're looking for this, it always keeps referring to erotic violence, and you're like, oh.
Wait, what? Erotic violence?
The original trailer for the Castlevania Pachinko machine had the tagline "erotic violence." Like it focused on, for example, the succubus from Symphony of the Night, and there's literally an image of like a dandelion seed puff going in between her cleavage.
Whoa! Somebody obliterated the mark.
Yeah, it's just, and then a later one showed, they were using headshots as like the multiple. This was technically a Pacha slot. It had slot machine elements to it, and it had images of various headshots of various characters, and the names underneath the character headshots were wrong. Just the problem is when I'm looking for Castlevania Pachinko, pretty much everything comes up referencing erotic violence, and I'm like, no, I want the later one where it showed all the fact that they just didn't match anything.
So is that in a trailer, I guess?
No, it wasn't a trailer. It was basically someone took an image of either they took images of the actual slots or they were revealed by Konami at like some sort of meeting, and it was just black and white character headshots with the names written under them, and it didn't match.
So Dengo-jin brings up something interesting. Soundtracks. Well, those Pachinko machines have soundtracks we can listen to some music.
That I will wholly admit to. There are several Castlevania Pachi slots from before this that were marvelous. Yeah, Dengo knows exactly what I'm talking about. There are 3 Castlevania Pachi slot soundtracks from previous games where like they literally adapted, like I think one of them specifically adapted Curse of Darkness. Like they literally adapted the game to a Pachi slot. And they remixed so much of Castlevania's various pieces over the years, and they are excellent. I mean, I think you can probably find downloads of them fairly easily. Shh, not totally legal, I know, but they're listed on the video game music database, VGMDB.net, and you can just see literally what they've all remixed. And I have listened to them; they are excellent. And I've said repeatedly to several people who know me, if these remixes were used in something other than a Japan-only Pacha slot game, I think it would do well, just from a musical level. Yeah. Granted, there actually were some new pieces. Like I believe the first piece of the first Pacha slot soundtrack was a brand new track specifically for that machine, and it fits in perfectly.
Interesting.
It's great. Yeah. I mean, almost everything is a remix or lifted bodily from previous games. But I mean, at worst, they'd be the equivalent of like the Final Fantasy Dissidia soundtrack, where it's basically just all the really good stuff all put together in one setting. Here you go. Which I'm like, yeah, I'd buy that. I'm not going to buy a Pachi slot machine for it, but I'd buy the CD.
Well, hey, Mana, since you're here, we should take advantage of this time to ask you plenty of questions. And my first question is, will you please post that art that you did of Miriam somewhere so we can look at it? Because it was your profile for a little bit, and then it disappeared, and I can only remember it so well in my mind. If you could please post that somewhere. No, I don't. Jojo asks, what does Giga think of the Nintendo Switch as hardware?
I feel this is a loaded question.
Well, I saw an article. I didn't read it, just the title. Hideo Kojima said something about how it's like a gamer's dream.
Yeah, it's preliminary for cloud access. It was, I think the most recent posting I saw about it was on The Escapist. Hold on. Yep, here it is. The fact that you can play something at home and take it outside is the gamer's dream. He was particularly a fan of the console's hybrid nature, which combines the at-home and on-the-go elements, which is not unlike his own transferring concept for moving data between the Vita and the PS3. So yeah, he said, I believe Switch is an extension of that idea, the fact that you can play something at home and take it outside. This is the gamer's dream. The Switch is an evolution of that. It's further behind right now than I think people thought it would be at this point, but I think it will go there when the infrastructure is ready. You'll be able to play everything on every device, anywhere. The Switch is the predecessor to this setup. So basically, he's looking at the potential cloud nature that something like this could create. I think he's talking less about the horsepower of the machine and more what it represents in terms of evolution.
Yeah, because if all of the computing is done in the cloud and we just have these visual devices and a way to control the input, it is the first step towards something like that.
Which honestly kind of worries me a little bit, because I'm old school enough that I prefer physical media. And
Well,
migration to the cloud is diminishing that more and more as time goes on.
I don't know how many of you were familiar with the NVIDIA Shield, but it was basically the same kind of concept. It was just poorly executed and wasn't as well received.
Yeah.
And actually, I believe that because NVIDIA was on board with the graphics of the Switch, that it was kind of their way of being like, okay, we're not going to let this idea die.
Yeah, pretty much.
I think JoJo has a little faith in the Switch. JoJo, am I correct in saying that it fails if you ask me means that the Switch fails?
He's a very traditional gamer.
He thinks it's already dead.
The idea of the Switch.
He does kind of have a point, because Nintendo's gone on record saying they think of the Switch and the 3DS as their own separate thing. They still want Switch to be primarily a home console, and I'm not entirely convinced they should be going that route.
I feel they're splitting their own market.
Yeah, that's kind of the problem, because they basically said 3DS games and DS games will not function with the Switch, which I'm like, see, that could be a problem, because, I mean, admittedly, they've already said their pre-orders are all sold out, but...
Okay, so Mana responded. Mana says, what Ika thinks about the Switch, it's interesting and it has potential, but at the same time, unsure about it like the rest of us.
I think the most problematic thing about the Switch, at least as far as Bloodstained is concerned, is the whole stretch goal about the Wii U was really cool, because it said we're going to contract it out to these developers that are trying to put the Unreal Engine onto the Wii U, which apparently no one else was able to do, and then offer that source code to everyone. And now the Switch is announced coming out in a month, and oh yeah, by the way, it runs UE4 natively. You're like,
yeah.
Well, that just completely killed the contractor.
I thought what was said about that was that they actually had the port ready. It was just that they had to get the go ahead or the NDA with Nintendo to actually release that code to other people.
No. Armature said that they would make it happen.
Yeah, the
it was
implication
not done yet.
And the information on the Kickstarter was, once Bloodstained was released and properly functional on Wii U, then they would release the source code, so anyone else could port a UE game onto the Wii U as well. The problem now is, since the Wii U hardware is discontinuing and the Switch runs UE4 natively, that whole concept has basically fallen flat on its face, unfortunately.
We're dead in the water.
Because the Kickstarter stretch goal covered that money. It was met and funded to pay Armature to do that.
I'm not saying it's a problem for Bloodstained itself.
But for sharing
I'm just saying the whole point of disseminating the source code, that doesn't matter now. No one's going to care. Because the Wii U, no one's making, they're discontinuing physical manufacture of the Wii U. The Switch is going to be out in less than a month.
And no future developers are going to want to port
no one. I mean, the homebrew market would fiddle with it, I'm sure. But
I'm curious.
Actual utilization on a corporate level, in terms of our company would like to, bring you in to develop this and maybe license your source code or whatever. No one cares now. Doesn't matter.
I'm slightly curious though, because there were certain games that were released on 2 different generations of console back to back, like between the Wii and the GameCube. I wonder if anyone would think of going that route, depending on how many Wii U's are actually out in the wild.
I know that hardware's got to be out there being utilized somehow, so it's got to have some kind of value.
Well, yeah, because a lot of people did indeed buy the Wii U, and I'm not sure a lot of them are just going to turn around the next year and convert over to the Switch.
It depends on what your definition of a lot is. If your definition of a lot is on the order of 7 or 8 digits, sure. If your definition of a lot is relative to other game systems, not so much.
Well, all of that might be irrelevant, because if you're going to release a game, it's going to cost you money to do so. If you're releasing something physically on Wii U, sure, if you're doing it digitally, it's something else. But if you're going to release physically on something, you're going to want to do it to as many people as you can. And I don't think that a console that's no longer being produced is something that's going to be worth your investment to do that, because it's not going to pay out. It's not going to it's not going to justify the cost of actually producing for that system.
And I feel that this goes back to what we were talking about earlier about the Kickstarter dilemmas, because now these were things that were promised, and it's the questions everyone's been asking is where do we go from here?
Mm-hmm.
Chip in the chat, he just took a cheap shot at that Switch.
Well, okay, so yeah, Chip said, well, if Bloodstained gets announced for the Switch, that'd be 3 worthwhile games on the console. So I'm guessing that's Bloodstained and Zelda. What would be the other one, Chip?
Bomberman, obviously.
Oh, come on.
Bomberman.
I'm torn between supporting Konami and supporting the original developers of Bomberman.
My guess would be Mario Odyssey, which admittedly is kind of weird looking, but
Mario's hat has eyes now. That's weird.
The eye hat is weird. The biggest problem for me is looking at that trailer, and pretty much everybody said the same thing. You've got Mario alongside realistic looking.
Yeah,
villains.
in
pretty
New
much
York
everybody immediately went straight to, oh my god, this is the Sonic 06 of Mario games.
Well, let's just throw this out there that Sonic 06 debacle, that happened for so many different reasons. If that ever happens on a Nintendo console, we will see the literal apocalypse of the gaming industry.
At this point in time, I don't think the demise of Nintendo as a hardware company would cripple the industry, but it would make it take note. I think right now, obviously, in terms of raw numbers, Sony's the bigger dog. But
yeah, absolutely.
But Nintendo's kind of the granddad, and Nintendo goes.
Nintendo's going to
like,
appeal to Nintendo, and that's basically it, as far as I can tell.
How I see the Nintendo numbers actually is even if they did drop out of the hardware race, this would force them to make their first party exclusives basically non-exclusive. So the wheel would keep turning as it always has. So that's
not going to be. They have too much money to ever have that problem. I don't think that even another Wii U type like cells is going to force them into the position where they're purely a software maker.
I don't think Nintendo will soon become Sega, JoJo. They've made some poor decisions. The Wii U was very, very, very poorly marketed. I think they could have done better if they made it clear it was completely new hardware rather than just buy this upgrade tablet. I mean, it sounded too much like smartphone work where you add a letter and it's just a new version. But I don't think they're going to go the way of Sega just yet. Maybe the whole reason that this console generation has been so heavy on remasters is because pretty much all the big dogs were convinced it was all going to be digital and cloud and consoles and physical media were dead. And whoops, it's not. So things aren't going as fast as the industry likes. So I don't think Nintendo's going to drop out of hardware. At least, certainly not for this generation. Obviously, probably not for whatever comes next. Check with me again in about 2025, and then maybe things will have changed. But honestly, I think if Nintendo gets out of the hardware race, it'll be because everybody's getting out of the hardware.
Well, consider that they just sold a bunch of NES classics, and that there is this group of people in America that will just buy Nintendo. If you have Pokemon Go, or Miitomo, or Mario Run, or NES Classic, or the Switch, they're just going to buy it anyway because that's the thing to do at the moment.
There's people screaming for the SNES Classic, right? And then, of course, there's the hacker who figured out how to crack the NES Classic Edition's systems and basically put like 400 games on it. I was like, that's what we want.
Well, anyone who emulates on PC, or a PSP or whatever, there's so many ways to do that you don't need a Nintendo.
I still have my
for.
PSP around here. I never got a Vita, but I do still have my old PSP and with Dissidia and Duodecim on it.
I don't have a Vita either. I've got my PSP, but I strongly am confident in thinking that Bloodstained will absolutely still release on the Vita, and all of those that have the Vita and love the Vita to this day will be able to play Bloodstained on it.
There was actually a theory I saw. I forget if it was. It was. I think it was on the Game Theorists, but it wasn't an actual game theory. I think it was Gaijin Goomba proposed that what the Switch is actually trying to do is compete with the Vita in Japan specifically. And if you look at the sales figures for Japan specifically, for Vita popularity, the fact that the Vita is rife with visual novels and everything else, I can see the argument. I can see the argument for, in Japan at least, Switch trying to take Vita's market rather than over here. Because for a very long time, Nintendo's mentality has pretty much always been Japan first, the rest of the world second, which is not a bad position for them to have, but it certainly would explain some of the more odd decisions from our point of view versus, the rest of the world. I mean, admittedly, our point of view on Nintendo is different than Europe, for example. As far as Europe's concerned, they look at Nintendo when we're screaming about how they are the great saviors of video gaming. Without them, the crash of '83 would never return. Great holy Nintendo saved us all. And meanwhile, Europe's over there like, what? I was busy playing with my ZX Spectrum. What?
Oh, yeah, the Spectrum.
Yeah, they were on the microcomputers. They did not care. Yeah. I mean, from what I understand, the Mega Drive and the Master System were far more popular in Europe than they ever were over here. Although, from what I understand, the Master System's truly dominating location was pretty much South America.
Really?
Mm-hmm. I mean, if you go looking for Master Systems, you can find them, but it's very difficult to find people, particularly stateside, who know what the heck that thing is. For most people, it was, oh yeah, Sega made the Genesis, and then all those other things that didn't do real well. Very few people remember the Master System.
Didn't Sega announce another run of productions for the Sega Master System in Brazil or something? Not too long ago?
I think I remember that. Yeah, they specifically announced not necessarily the equivalent of the NES Classic Edition, but
like a full-on.
Just kind of like a nice, right? Yeah, just kind of a nice tribute thing. And I think they announced an equivalent for the Mega Drive somewhere. I just don't remember if that was a U.S. Genesis thing or if it was an international Mega Drive or what.
JoJo says that the Vita is still popular in part of Asia, and the games are region-free, but the DLC isn't? That is crap. I mean, I'm not big on DLC, but I could see how that would really stifle some people's experiences.
Yeah. I very rarely buy DLC. Even in cases of cases where I particularly think it would improve my game, I find it very difficult to bring myself to pay piecemeal for little extra stuff that on a certain level I look at and I'm like, why isn't this here in the first place?
Well,
I mean, if they did old school full bore expansions,
right? And I'm going to get the next two Witcher 3. I've played Witcher 3, and I'm going to get those next two expansions. They sound like entire games into themselves.
Right. Whereas, for example, on say for example my 3DS, I've got the Final Fantasy Theater Rhythm games, and I've got Persona Q, and there are a lot of pieces I'd like to download for Theater Rhythm just to play. There are, of course, the specialty personas and navigators in Persona Q, but I just can't bring myself to pay money for stuff that I'm like, shouldn't this be here already?
So that's your take on DLC. What's your take on expansions? Like, the Elder Scrolls uses expansions.
For that, I usually don't mind, especially because eventually they put out a version that has everything. That in particular, it is if there was a DLC version of Theater Rhythm and Persona Q that they were like, here's the Game of the Year edition with all the DLC already in, I would probably sell my original copy and buy the new one.
As much as I love Skyrim and
my brain doesn't like it. Probably because I'm old. School anyway.
As much as I liked the Elder Scrolls games, I've never played a single expansion from them.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Now,
But that's just
have you never bought the Game of the Year editions with them already added in? Or?
No.
Okay.
I played them when they came out, and then I was done with them when I finished the main quest.
To be fair, as big as they are, if you did go for all the expansions, you'd basically be there.
One of the things that I think is really cool, if you guys haven't checked it out, there is in the external articles section on the forums, there's an article that is really old. It came out like right when I think the Kickstarter ended. And let's see, Smuplations translated it. It was a GameSpot Japanese article, and it went into a lot of detail about Bloodstained that we didn't get over here, and it's very pertinent to the plot and the setting and everything. And that's where I first found out that Ego was using the Laki volcano disaster in the game. And when I saw it in this latest update, I was like, oh wow, that's cool. It's like he's had this all planned out ever since way back then in that article, and now stuff like that is being revealed. So if you haven't read that, I'll link it right now in Discord, but it's an excellent interview, and I think it should be like required reading.
Thrash Nuva, are you in Ohio too?
Oh, is Thrash here?
Thrash Nuva is in the chat.
He's not
Thrash.
Oh, he's not in here.
Yeah, he's not in the voice.
Okay.
What I kind of like is like because I don't follow the whole thing too closely. I just like to believe that there's somewhere out there's a Japanese vampire cowboy working away at his desk to make a game.
It's true. It's happening right now.
And that's the image I just keep playing back and forth in my head, and just writing stuff down on a paper, scrapping it.
Man, if
checking
you're
his
listening,
computer.
please tell me, is Iga at work today in his cowboy hat and black shirt, or is he wearing something different today? Because I always imagine him in that setup, because that's what he goes out and, like, with his publicity, he does that same outfit every time.
I mean, you gotta wear the hat into the office.
Yeah, I think the hat should be, like, auctioned off. He could probably raise money with that hat.
It's part of his identity. You can't take it away.
True. JoJo's helping me out by text chatting Mana.
We have to save as many brains as possible.
Yeah.
I blame beer. Hey man, I'm about 3 deep. I'm okay.
I'm about 3 deep too. Cheers.
Afraid all I've had is a Mexican Coke, so.
I don't know what that is.
That would basically be Coca-Cola imported from Mexico, where they actually still use cane sugar rather than HFCS.
I see.
Oh,
The real stuff, not this high fructose corn syrup BS.
Back when they used to make it with cocaine, I see.
Not that old school, but
we just need a few Long Island iced teas. We'll all be good. Just tastes like iced tea.
We're Ego fans. We need glasses of red wine.
Oh man,
that we can throw and say specific remarks as if we type in up down left right BA.
Hey.
Select start.
No,
Brainiac knows. Brainiac knows that if you do that on the forum, something might happen. If you're a listener that's lucky enough to listen right now, that's a secret, but you're in on it now.
Well, the hilarious thing is that they actually did remember to put that in the original Sword vs. Myth website, and they literally said, "Did you think that was going to do something?"
I know, man. That's so cool.
I don't care how far down Konami goes. I will give them.
You know what? Sword or Whip is still online. Let me go out there. I want to try that right now.
The thing still functions.
Yeah. All right. Let's see. Up, down, left, right, BA. Nope. I don't think it does anything anymore there.
Okay.
Yeah,
I mean, there's a whole website dedicated to what sites do something if you type that on your computer keyboard. It's very amusing.
Yeah, I don't know if the forums are registered there, but they should be.
Yeah, it should be. It's pretty obvious.
You would think. People are still unaware of it today.
Man is basking in the sound of silence.
She's probably busy translating something.
Of silence. I am still trying to find the news articles about the wrong names for the Castlevania slots or Pachi.
Well, that's fine.
I'm just not having any luck. I remember seeing this article. I remember it being talked about, but I just can't find any copy.
Yeah, same for me.
Yeah, because the problem is every attempt to search pachinko, pachi slot, whatever, always goes back to the erotic violence trailer, which frankly, if you haven't seen the erotic violence trailer by now, don't go looking for it. You just feel worse.
Oh, I've seen that. Well, I am pleasantly surprised that we've had so many show up to the first Discord voice chat.
For any later listeners, particularly if you're near the Cincinnati area in Ohio, like Thrash Nuva in the Discord, if you want to come to the A&G Con at the beginning of March and give me a hand potentially with a Bloodstained presentation, feel free.
So what's the location and the date for that?
This is the first weekend in March. It's called A&G Con Ohio. Its website is cartooncon.org, all one word, no hyphens, no nothing. And basically, it'll be running March 3rd to March 5th. They do have stuff relatively all day, to the point where they did allow for evening and overnight panels, which I was like, look, I don't care what day you put this, but if you're going to give me a panel, we want to go with Purify Weird Souls idea, and we want it to be a true panel of the night. I want it to be after sunset. Preferably when it's dark out, but, at least after sunset.
That would be cool.
Yeah.
That's a good idea. Good job, PWS.
At this point, at this point, my plan is a small panel, 1, possibly 2 nights, basically just showing what I've got. At this point, I would probably open it up with Mega Driver's cover of Voyage of Promise, because why not start with a little face melting?
I would ever have to suggest that the entire panel is given in some form of cosplay, just to get into the spirit.
I would consider it, but I don't really have the time to put it together right now because, like I said, I was waiting on trying to find out if there'd be any new release, because the original idea and original okay, I got verbal okay and a card for someone to contact. The verbal arrangement was if there was a new build to showcase, I would bring it. But it turned out that wasn't going to happen. I've contacted them since. I finally emailed the guy and said, look, there's not going to be a new build. I can bring the demo from E3 last year, but that's it. Do you still want me to show up? And I haven't heard back.
I have to say one thing though. It's like I haven't heard of much as far as Bloodstained meetups or kind of like convention appearances in the West specifically. I mean, because I live out in Nevada in the United States, and I'm like, man, I haven't heard of anything going on around here.
The convention venue for A&G Con is the Ramada Plaza Hotel and Conference Center at 11320 Chester Road, Cincinnati, Ohio 45246.
I would love to be there. I'm just too far away.
Anybody who can come, feel free. It's a fun little con. It's not huge. Great. And I can't, like I said, that they said they'd give me up to 6 passes to get into the gaming area, to basically just so they're able to have the thing. So yeah, you could basically get there and just party and check things out. And basically, at this point, it looks like it's pretty much just going to be just me. And if that's the case, fine. But it means I may have to shut down the systems in the gaming area when I'm doing the panel, because...
Well, Thrash is really close to you. He's in Ohio, too.
Yeah, Thrash isn't that far. Thrash might be able to make it.
Jim's one of our old members, man. He's been around with us forever. He's the one with the candle skeleton gif as his pick. He's a state away in Indianapolis. And also, we have a couple of other members there, which Luck Percent SRL is included. So he's a speedrunner that is really looking forward to playing Bloodstained and speedrunning.
But yeah, anybody who wants to come down to Cincinnati and hang out for the first weekend in March, I can probably see about getting a hotel room. You'll have to buy a pass at the door if things don't work out. You might have to buy a pass at the door, and that'll be $50. But it's the full 3 days. I can probably see about getting a hotel room, but I don't know how sold out they are at this point. My guess is they're not sold out. But yeah, I was the original verbal agreement was they could get me up to a half dozen passes if they were necessary, and they'd probably be able to set aside a hotel room. I don't know how firm that is because, like I said, no one's gotten back to me yet. But yeah, anybody who wants to come down to A&G Con, feel free. I think the only major guests they've announced at this point are they've announced their cosplay catwalk. They're having an amiibo cockfight, and
wait, what?
They're having an amiibo cockfight. Have you seen these on Screw Attack at their Screw Attack gaming convention?
No, no.
Basically, 2 amiibo enter, 1 amiibo leaves. You put your amiibos into a specific game, and the loser's amiibo is immediately destroyed.
The physical amiibo is destroyed?
Yes, the physical amiibo is destroyed. You put your data.
Sounds like a bad time for a lot of people.
Yep, it pretty much comes down to the whole. We're sick and tired of them all being rare, so we're gonna make it worse. It's Screw Attack. I think started the idea a while ago, and it's kind of moved over. The thing about A&G Con is they also have what's called the Multiverse Rumble, which is basically cosplay wrestling, more or less. So they're a little cosplay out there. Wrestling? Multiverse Rumbles from A&G Con 2016. They had Supergirl versus Bizarro. They had Steve Irwin versus Ace Ventura. That was A&G Con 8 in 2015, actually. They had Patches O'Houlihan versus Dwight Goodman from Dodgeball. They had Street Fighter characters versus Mortal Kombat characters. They basically have a small wrestling ring set up, and people dressed as the characters fight it out in the ring. Thing. I don't know if it's specifically what they're known for, but no, Chip, it's not all guys. Like I said, one of the multiverse rumbles for 2016 was Supergirl versus.
I hope Supergirl won.
I have no idea. The 2016, I basically showed up at the beginning to ask them about Bloodstained, and then at the end to see if the remnant of the audience that stayed for the end game, the closing ceremonies, and basically just did an informal poll saying if it's available, who wants to see the new bill next year? And of the 20 or 30 people who stayed, I'd say about a good 2/3 of them put their hand up. So I was like, okay.
All right. Well, as far as recording goes, I think I'm gonna cut it off here. But that doesn't mean anyone needs to leave or anything.